Well, basically, Hank's the El Pacificador, which is, sergeant of arms. He is the basically the muscle and the protector of the club. He protects the president, the vice president, and oversees and regulates a lot of the goings-on within the club. It's sort of a disciplinarian, but as much as he's the muscle, he definitely has to be level-headed. I mean, he actually has to be the calmest one in the group, non-reactive as much as possible, and his job is to protect the president, vice president at any cost.
Your son, Steve, he was one of the good ones. He understood brotherhood. It's a lot rarer than you think in our world. A lot of patches, they talk loyalty, but Steve, I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm not trying to cause you or your daughter any more pain. I just wanted to give you this.
A lot of people, I think they're starting to figure Hank out. They're like, well, he doesn't say a whole lot. Well, if you knew what was going on in his head, you wouldn't talk either if it was going on with you. We know the young guys are doing dirt. Can't really put our fingers on it and prove it, but we still have to protect them. We have the old guys like Alvarez and Bishop and Taza, and I kind of consider Hank in that realm. I want to protect the old ways. In the name of the club goes first, and Hank is a firm believer in that. So there's that, and with Bishop, he's kept us busy this season. Yeah.
And so let me get to know a little bit of your background and what led up to you being on a role like this. Tell us, I know you're from the Bay Area.
Actually, I was born out here in Barstow, okay. Apple Valley, yeah.
All right, but some of the bio information online says, did you grow up in San Francisco, or? I
spent a lot of time in San Francisco growing up. I kind of was all over the place, but yeah, I lived over in the Haight-Ashbury of San Francisco, Upper Haight and Lower Haight.
So what was it like growing up? Were you growing up around like Chicanos, or were you growing up around like hippies in the Haight?
Well, it wasn't so much the hippies in the Haight. You have the Mission District, which is a very large Latino demographic in San Francisco. As small as it is, it's still very present. There was just a lot of, I grew up around punk rock and music and art, but it was sort of an intense art. And I was glad that I lived in San Francisco at a time when San Francisco to me was San Francisco. It was exciting, and you could work a 9-to-5 job, but still manage to afford a lifestyle there because rents weren't as expensive, and there was a good barter system in the underground. And I think I was here a lot because I was playing music, and I was definitely influenced by that growing up.
Were you a tough kid growing up?
If I was a tough kid, I wasn't a tough kid because I was trying to be a tough kid. I was a punk rock kid. So it's not like it is now. You got picked on a lot, so you had to fight your way out of things out of time, but it wasn't so much out of violence. It was sort of like you're being chased by 20 football players, or, it was kind of tough, but it was just more of a survival, I guess would be the honest answer. I never really thought I was a tough guy so much. I mean, at the end of the day, I was just this kid that, I liked listening to music or playing music, and I kind of wanted to do my own thing. But if you stand out, people are going to definitely let you know you stand out. I was sitting back with Joseph a couple weeks ago, I think, and Emilio, and I think we were talking about, wow, it's been almost 5 years. And I think we kind of, made reference to the fact that if we were to talk to ourselves 5 years ago individually, we would have very different conversations or perspectives of how far the show's come or how the characters have developed, and that's been pretty amazing. I'm still a little bit I'm still kind of blown away, a little overwhelmed by it, but in a good way. So I'm kind of just kind of taking it in at the moment. Now that we're done with this season, I'm kind of letting it, kind of play itself out. The great thing about the storylines that Elgin has given us, if I were to die at any given time on the show, I truly believe I would have a good death. you know, the death would have made sense, and you know, the backstory that would have led to people either loving or being relieved that, you know, I was taken out, you know, is good. But it wouldn't just be an impulsive death. They're not written that way, so if they've had a good life or they've run their course and it's added to the story, you know. I'm more worried about being in the now as far as like telling a good story while Hank's breathing, but who's to say how it plays out. I mean, I'll be honest, I think in the past 20 years I've really just kind of had to not mellow out, but I've had to kind of reflect. You know, when you think about music and art, sometimes there's a dark side of that and people fade out. I didn't want to. I just think I'm older now. I mean, I'm 52, so I like the fact that I wake up every day and things are, there's food on the table and I've got a good job and I get to do art, and that's the part that really makes me happy. I would have never thought 20 years ago that I'd be where I was at, to be honest. So.
Where were you 20 years ago? Where did you go?
Well, you know, to be honest, I was on a crash course. You know, I was on my way out. In a couple of weeks, I hit 20 years sober. So that should tell you. And, you know, it's just something I look back on in my life, and I just like, wow, you know, this is your life. And I look at people that struggle, you know, with the things that I'd struggled with, and you'd be surprised if you just give it a chance how things can play out, if you let it. And that's just the only message that I try to convey to people without getting preachy or over the top about it. If you want to see somebody who totally, you know, almost burned out and took some pretty crazy choices that almost didn't end up well for them, but turned it around and managed to have a life like I have now with Mayans and acting and the people who come into it as a result of, you know, it's possible, man, yeah.
How'd you get into acting?
Well, when I was a little kid, I used to watch Charlie Chaplin movies a lot. And I also remember there was some mimes in the 70s, Shields and Yarnell. And what did it for me was just watching how people did things in front of TV that are like, where does this come from? And the game changer for me was, there was an episode of Barney Miller. There was an episode called The Hero. And there was Chano, who was a plainclothes cop who responded to a bank robbery. And he had shot 2 people in the process and killed them. And in the scene, I saw this humor where he was with Hal Linden, Barney Miller, and there's this elephant in the room, and it's comedic, but it's a very sad scene. And I remember seeing my father cry. And I was watching, and my dad was a cop. My dad was a tough guy. And I was just sort of like, I don't understand how this could be funny, a funny TV show, but yet people are crying and there's something, it just messed with me. But I was like, I think I want to do that. But you know, like I said, that was, people want to be astronauts, so they want to be the president. It was something that was kind of planted in my brain, so to speak. But that definitely was something that really, really did it for me. In high school, I was in trouble, and I was put in drama class as a punishment, which is weird to think that they put you in drama as a punishment. And I had a teacher, Mrs. Cunningham, who told me, you have something here if you stick with it and stop getting in trouble. And that was the first adult that I had, and you know, outside of my parents, that actually told me I could do something worthwhile. And well, you know, I eventually came back around and did it. You know, I never got a chance to thank her because she passed away a year before Mayans came to fruition. But yeah.
Now, when did you start, you know, kind of landing some roles and stuff professionally, and realize, okay, this is, you know, more than just like a side thing, it's really amazing?
I was walking down the street, Haight Street in San Francisco, and there was a guy that said, hey, you want to be on TV? And I thought he was propositioning me for another type of film. And I was like, hey, get away. And Don Johnson was casting Nash Bridges. So I went down for an audition. My friends dared me to. And even though I acted like I didn't want to do it, I really did. And I went and tried out for it, and I got the role. And after that, I booked a couple commercials, and then things went quiet for a while. And I think in 2001, I did another movie, and I got to do a gig with Tilda Swinton, which was pretty awesome. And she was one of those actresses that showed you that you could do the great work and be humble and be cool, and she was very patient. And it was a small scene I did, but just seeing somebody on that level treat somebody like me, you know, with such respect, but also, you know, sort of influencing knowledge, that's when I realized, like, wow, I want to do this more. But, you know, it's like acting. Sometimes you have the highs and lows, and sometimes the phone doesn't ring, but I kind of started out that way, and then, you know, got eventually to Mayans. I think my father and I, if I said we were at odds, I don't think it was because there was a disdain for one another. I think it was just, I had my mind made up on what I thought I should do or how I should be, and he thought the contrary, and he was very vocal about it. And you know, my dad, it was intense. It psychologically, yeah, it was like a tug of war. But I also, you know, in all fairness, you know, I can thank my father for that, because that intensity and that kind of inner, I think Hank picks up on that a lot. I think I get that from my father. I think that comes out. It's almost mirroring. And in fact, the scene with Momo where I kind of tearing him at the hotel, or Steve, the prospect, that was very similar. I felt like I was playing my father talking to a younger me at that moment, if you want the truth. I mean, it was a really hard scene to do. And Elgin, you know, I was like, I feel like I'm my dad talking to a younger me, and you know, but that was just a point in time. Like I said, my father was a good guy, but we definitely had that time. Right.
Are you guys all gonna have like group therapy and stuff after the show? Like,
yeah.
Is it that intense?
It is. Like the past couple of weeks, I needed a major disconnect. I really did. And I told Elgin that the other night. We, you know, I managed to hang out and talk, and I said I just need a disconnect, because I want to come back for another season 10 times as strong. So I need to do sort of a artistic bloodletting, so to speak. So yeah, there's those scenes that really gut you, but I think it's good because it helps us exercise things in our lives or in our subconscious that we need to let go. And I've had 2 scenes like that still, if I think about them, they kind of take me there, so I try not to go there. Yeah.
Tell us about the band.
What, Round 9 Collective? It's just, you know, it's a street punk band that we're definitely inspired by bands like The Clash and Sham 69 and Skinflex. They're just, it's a working class, you know, street punk band, which is different than certain genres of punk rock. Very influenced by old English bands. You know, the bands that influenced us they were playing around the same time the Sex Pistols were. Which, by the way, FX is putting out a Sex Pistols film. I'm pretty excited about that series, that pistol that's coming out. I'm pretty psyched about that. Yeah. I don't know. I just went off course here, but yeah, I saw the billboard on the way over here. But the band got a couple records out. Elgin's putting a couple of our songs in one of the upcoming episodes. I'm actually kind of stoked on that. I had to stop the band once we started Mayans because I wanted to be 100% in on Mayans, not have any distractions. You know, I'm glad you brought that up. I had a situation that falls in line with that. I did a signing a couple years ago, and I met a young boy named Cisco who has autism. And that's something that's very, you know, important to me when it comes to it. I have some relatives that I love that have autism. And Cisco, I got an email from his mother a couple weeks ago, his mother and father. Cisco happened to walk in on the TV where Hank was talking to his mom, and I'd been shot. And he came unglued, and he was worried that something happened to me because he met me. And they had to talk him down for about a half hour that, you know, I was okay. So I was able to call him the next day, and we talked and we FaceTimed, and I let him know it was make-believe, and you know, it meant a lot that he cared so much, but he's like, I just saw something happen to my friend, and I never really thought about it like that because I don't have kids. And I was like, wow, this is some heavy stuff here. But you know, by the time we talked about it, we were good, and then his mom got back to me, and his uncle said, wow, you got to talk to that guy on the phone. He goes, oh yeah, it's my friend, he's fine. And he went off and did his thing. But the fact that where we go with this art sometimes can be a little realistic sometimes. It's a trip, you know. But that threw me off a couple weeks ago, but it was kind of cool, you know, to know the kid cared so much, you know.
Do you think that like things are you more susceptible to, I guess, more sensitive to things now? And maybe things don't throw you off, but they might because you notice that they could, whereas when you were young, You're like, nothing's throwing you
Yeah.
off, and you're not realizing things are going wrong.
I think I was always sensitive. I just think I put a big wall up, and that's something you shouldn't do on any level, especially artistically or in life. I just think I was in a different place where you had your guard up. So I'm glad that, you know, every day, sometimes there's a big chip away at those walls. So yeah.